Okay, well, thank you for the invite. It's always nice to be doing stuff with the Hunterian and for the Hunterian. And although this is online, I very much hope that it will lead to real life present stuff. So, okay, I keep showing you these pictures of midges, and you probably wonder why. It's because it's about hedonistic pleasures in Scotland and in Glasgow. So, hedonistic pleasures might include midges, might include rain, might include Rod Stewart. But better than all of that, we've got whiskey, which, as we know, is a work of art. And that's the story I'm telling today, how whiskey becomes a work of art. It's the work of art by Frank Quitely, and that's what as Rachel has said, I'll concentrate on aspects of that creation. And Joseph will then in a later talk tell you more about the Hunterian material. What I'm telling you what I'm talking about today, and I really hope it would be interactive, either using the chat or just speaking out and asking questions. But it's also based on a talk I'll be giving an MLA keynote, because we've got the MLA conference coming to Glasgow. Is very rarely out of North America, so it's a real honor for the MLA conference to be coming, and there'll be a reception, thanks to Rachel, in the Hunterian for MLA delegates. So to some extent, you're guinea pigs drinking whiskey. I'm not quite sure where that leads. So the whiskey in question, the creation of which you see the box here, the box has been created by Frank Quitely, and there are two versions, the 23-year-old and the 32-year-old. But before that, just to show you a little bit more and to give you a better idea, I'm going to show you a video which has been described. It was described by friends, colleagues and students in San Diego as what they called the best advert ever. I don't think it's an advert. I think it's more than an advert, but this will give you some of the context of the creation. You're here, okay?
The legend goes it starts with a church. The people of Islay built Kellaroo Church way back in 1767, and they built it completely round. It was to keep the devil out, they say, to give him no corner to hide. According to the legend, the devil does finally appear deep within the walls of the church. With torches, people of Islay light up the dead of night, drive the devil out of the church. They chase him through the town into Bowmer Distillery. They shutter the building, board up the doors, and they go inside. But the devil's nowhere to be found. You're already out on an island. Where is there to go? It's presumed that he did escape in a whiskey cask for the mainland on the paddlestone. I needed to feel this place to tell this story in a single image. Darkness that the Bowmer people would have felt all those years ago. My first introduction to the devil was probably my dad reading Tam O'Shanter to me when I was a kid. So I really wanted to do this story justice. It's the heritage, not just of the island of Islay, to the people of the town, and to Bowmer. The whiskies themselves lovingly retell the story. The scent of incense, candles and beeswax, florals, golden syrup and acacia honey. The subtle peat smoke, pine and oak, lingering notes of the sea, the steamship that the devil escapes on. Generations of expert work crafted into something new. The celebration of Islay and the heritage of the Bowmer people, passing down their traditions, their stories, their whiskies.
So that's pretty good, isn't it? And the advantage of doing this online is I couldn't have shown you that film if we'd have been in the gallery, or at least it would have been a little bit more difficult. So, and I'd like your feedback on that, but I think that's really that's showing how business and art interact in a film such as that. As you'll see, when you go to the exhibition, there'll be a whiskey bottle entrance, which is what you see. It will be there. I've spoken to Mikey. He says it's definitely going to be there. And the left-hand wall is then, so if we're looking across here, this wall here, and it's a small exhibition, it's a showcase exhibition, is about Frank Whiteley's creative process. And at the same time, it raises certain implicit questions, such as that of the very nature of the overlap, the relationship between business and art, which isn't a new thing, between high and low culture, between gender roles, the place of women in advertising and in art. So broader questions brought up by an initial introduction to how an artist works. I suspect most of you already know this, but just to tell you that Frank Whiteley is best known for his work on Superman, Batman, Jupiter's Legacy, the recent Netflix film. And just to say, the slide I'm showing you here is a still taken from the film made by Vincent Deegan, which and that's part of the exhibition, and you'll see it is absolutely incredible, the film. So if nothing else, just go and sit in front of a video. So he's known for Batman, Superman, Jupiter's Legacy, but he doesn't just do superheroes. And he is also no stranger to comic artwork which goes beyond the pages of comics. So although the Bowmer project is a slight departure, previously Frank Whiteley has, for instance, done the decor for the Radisson Red Hotel, I think the first in the UK of this type, where Radisson draw upon artistic qualities relating to the local environment. So nonetheless, for the Radisson project, as for the Bowmer project, these are marked more than ever by Frank Whiteley's meticulous research. And this is what we will see in the film, in the exhibition. This is meticulous research involving primary sources, which then leads to textual details, which for me often lead to touches of iconoclastic humor. So when you see the back cloth on the exhibition, you'll see, you can go right up to it and you can see the characters peering into the water, the little details. And here we've got the importance of the flames. So just remember the flames for the time being. What we see in the exhibition is the process of creation, from the initial sketches made on hotel newspaper to more elaborate sketches that follow these up, through to computerized versions, and then the full detail in versions which will, there are various copies of this, but which will also be included in the box set for the 32-year-old. So basically what you will see in this exhibition is the whole process of an artist's creation, from writing, creating the box, doing the blue version, which then allows for a filling in via the computer screen till the final version is created. It's a bit strange here telling you about Frank Whiteley's process when we have in the audience a certain Frank. It reminds me a bit, and I don't know if you get this reference, of the Woody Allen film Annie Hall, where they're talking about Marshall McLuhan, and Woody Allen says, Marshall McLuhan says this and that, and then he turns up to say he's talking complete rubbish. Well, I hope that doesn't happen here. Any questions so far before I go on to my last bit, because this is only a 15-20 minute talk. before I go on to my last bit, in which I give the context of the exhibition. Any initial questions, either by putting your hand up or through the chat? I'll go, that's better than. Okay, so what about the context of the demon drink? On the right-hand wall, we have the double theme of the exhibition, which is that of the unifying theme of alcohol in its positive sides, alcohol in its negative sides, alcohol in art. And although we could have gone back to the Romans, we started with the Renaissance and through to the 20th century. It includes objects, collections from the Hunterian largely, but also from Glasgow University archives, and a lone object from Magnum Photography, the Gérard Depardieu. So I'll just flash through some of these pieces, and I won't spend too long in it, partly because we're already at 16 minutes past, but also because Joseph will give you a far better overview of the Hunterian artworks. So just to give some of these, so we, and this is the Depardieu photo, which is one of my favorites in the theme. How does this all link to alcohol? Sorry, not to alcohol. How does this all link to the theme of comics? It links through the theme of the flame, first of all, and we've deliberately put the theme of the flame next to the Grotius, the piece of artwork from the Renaissance, and the Depardieu photo, the flame of love. But this is where I asked you to remember back, the flame is such a prominent motif in the Frank Whiteley artwork. Also, one of the bottles, the containers that is displayed, it was found in the middle of Glasgow, dug up in the 18th century, I believe, and on the front of it is a devil figure, which reminds me very much of Frank Whiteley's devil. The Hogarth piece, which would grace any exhibition, but of course Hogarth is often considered one of the early inventors of comics. He had series such as The Harlot's Progress, The Rake's Progress, and this one, Gin Lane, goes alongside a similar a pendant piece on beer, where gin is negative and we see all the negative effects of alcohol, and the beer gives the positive effects. In the display, we've left it mainly for practical reasons, but it's in the book in which the pieces were already collected, which to some extent forms like a great big huge comic book. So Hogarth as one of the original masters. And then of course there's Tenants, which is a very different market to Bowmer, but it does show us how marketing for alcohol is used at different levels and using different symbols. And here brings up the question of gender stereotypes used in marketing, which will also come up in an Art Nouveau poster we have in the exhibition. The exhibition should be going, we hope, after the Hunterian to San Diego, to a San Diego Comic Con museum, where we will use the Frank Whiteley artwork, but won't transfer the Hunterian pieces. Instead, we'll be using pieces from Californian collections, so as to explore the theme in the same way, but with the local effect. So as a conclusion, all I can say is that you don't need, however, for the time being, to go to San Diego. You can go to Hillhead Street, to the Hunterian Art Gallery, and I really would advise you to go there. And if you send me an email, I'd be more than happy to show you around on an individual level and to give you some of the inside stories about the ups and downs and where we got there, and the best ofs and the bloopers. I enjoy walking through this thing, and I enjoy walking with the Hunterian. But for the time being, I would suggest, please do make sure you go there. You can go by subway, you can go by bus, or for the devils amongst you, you can go in a whiskey barrel. Okay.
How did the exhibition kind of come to be? Was this sort of like a proposal that you put forward to the Hunterian, or you and Joseph kind of chatting, or?
Yeah. I'd been working with Frank quietly on other projects, and previously we worked on a Hunterian exhibition called Comic Invention, and I was aware that he was doing this project for Bowmer, and it really struck me that it wasn't a commercial project. It was a piece of artwork. It was an art project. It was in the vein of Toulouse-Lautrec and other great artists who have worked for commercial purposes. And so I suggested to him, but it, as Indiana Jones would say, it deserves to be this should be in a museum. And Frank, quietly being very affable and helpful, said yes, of course. I put the suggestion forward to Steph, the Hunterian director, who was very enthusiastic. Nothing to do with the fact that he does like a single malt. But then it was made, the obvious point is that this should draw on Hunterian collections. Well, the Hunterian has such a wealth of collections. It's very easy to find a theme like this and to say, well, something to do with alcohol. Oh, we've got this version of a Veronese, which is to do with the Feast of Cana, or we have these Art Nouveau posters for the advertising of alcohol in the late 19th century. And it was a real pleasure to work with Joseph Sharples, who has this mind for making connections, which so it allows us to go from one step to the next and to make different connections and to make an exhibition which I hope has several stories to tell. And I like to think that's how exhibitions do work, when you've got more than one story to tell. A bit like a good play like the one on Muir and Moore at the moment. If you've got a central theme, but other bits connecting in. Does that answer your question, Rachel?
Yes, no, definitely. Thanks, Blair. I was just kind of curious about how it sort of started. We've got a question in the chat from Annabelle, is asking, do we have any archives from Bowmer? I don't know if we do we?
They're included on the video. So
right.
In doing the research for the project, Frank quietly spent a lot of time on the Isle of Islay. He went to the island's museum. He used the records and the archives, and he used these as then the basis for his sketches. So I just alluded to it very quickly, but in the video in the exhibition, you'll see how fully researched the pieces are. It really isn't just work, but he invents. He does do a researcher's work on this, and so that is represented in the film and in the final product.
There's a question here from Anna, in how involved was Bowmer in the exhibition, or was it just kind of focused on the artwork?
It was focused on the artwork, and it was always clear that an exhibition shouldn't be an advert. The support we've had from Scott Milne at Bowmer has emphasized that Bowmer see it as an artistic collaboration, that Bowmer likes to celebrate and to encourage artists who are both local and national, Scottish and international artists. So it's very much the idea of Bowmer supporting, encouraging the arts. But the exhibition is a Hunterian exhibition using Hunterian materials. So, and it's not an advert. Personally, it was, we took one of the pieces from it's a version of a Van Dyck which shows Bacchus, and both Joseph and I looked at it and said, well, what's going on here? Is this an advert for having a good time with alcohol, or is it saying, watch out, you end up like he does if you drink too much? And I think it was from that the two sides came together, and we quickly became aware that the temperance movement in Glasgow was very strong. Glasgow has strong links to temperance movement, and that we have material that reflects that. The Demon Drink book, which comes from archives and special collections, tells the story of what goes wrong, how your life goes to bits if you drink too much. And it's a reflection of a film called Cherries, which is on display in the Museum of Religion. The basic story is a man comes out of in Glasgow, comes out of work, he's got his pay, and it's a sliding doors film. On one side, he buys cherries, goes home, the family eats it, and he lives happily ever after. On the other side, he goes to the pub, and he loses his money, his wife and kids become destitute, and he ends up dying in poverty. So there's a warning for you.
That certainly is. We thanks, Billy. We've got a question from Lucy in the chat about you've already touched on this sort of there, was the ambiguity of our relationship with alcohol important in thinking about the work for the exhibition?
Yeah, I think, Lucy, I think that does sum it up. I think the ambiguity of a relationship is there throughout the exhibition, and on the opening panel we say that it's not always clear whether it is a hedonistic catalyst or a dangerous drug. There's another piece from the Low Countries showing the drunken peasants, which almost looks like it could be Glasgow on a Friday night, a couple slithering back hand in hand and staggering. And you do ask the question, well, are they happy and we shouldn't question that? Or is it more sinister? The Deux Pardons photograph, which I showed you, on the one hand, you can interpret that as a love story that the three characters are happy in love and we're not sure who's with whom. On the other hand, you can see it as a very sad image of deprived Glasgow. So yes, yeah, that's exactly it, Lucy. There is this ambiguity, which I think all we can do is point to rather than account for.